Okay, geweldig. Short screen. Mine's over here. Okay, here we go. We are up to the Mishnah on Daf Kuf on the base. Hamima Enes, a woman who does meal. So this was a Tana who is Memayan, and therefore she doesn't need to get, she can just walk out. Or Hashniya, a woman who is also to be married with Rabban. Is it Rabban to marry a Shniya? The islands, a woman who cannot achieve maturity, so because of that, it's a mekatos. So all of these women, ein lahen ksuba, they don't get ksuba, nor any of the other benefits of ksuba. So Rashi explains, Amima Enes doesn't get ksuba because she's leaving. He's not giving her a get, she's leaving. The Shniya doesn't get a ksuba, Rashi explains, because we want to discourage her from pushing for Nisuin. Rashi explains, a woman who's a Shniya, she doesn't become possible if she lives with this man, and her children don't become possible. And we learned in the Gemara earlier that the main thing that prevents a woman from wanting to marry somebody is if it'll be poigim her children. Women fiercely protect their children. So since a Shniya, her children won't be possible, she'll pursue this man and want him to make Nisuin on her, which is usher. So therefore we sanction her, and we cancel, we take away her ksuba, so that will discourage her from wanting to enter into such a marriage. On the islands, it's pasha that's a mekatos. So therefore, ein lam ksuba. The Gemara is going to discuss that. Then it's not a mekatos. Yeah, the Gemara is going to actually discuss that. Then ein lahen ksuba, veloy pairs. Rashi has different shatim in what pairs means. One halacha it means is, she never gets pairs. He gets pairs. The husband gets pairs. But why does he get pairs? He gets pairs because he has to ransom her if she gets kidnapped. So it means she doesn't have the benefit of pairs if she gets kidnapped. A. B rashes, or if the husband ate pairs wrongfully because there was no such deal, he doesn't have to pay it back after the marriage is over. He doesn't have to support her. So of course Rashi says, if a woman makes mian, I understand she doesn't get mizonis afterwards, but avada she gets mizonis before because he's living with her. Veloy belois, which the Gemara is going to get into in detail, but if it's clothing that she brought into the marriage, and the Mishnah Rashi says it's clothing that she brought in b'nichse tzem barzel, so they were assessed as far as their value when they came into the marriage. The husband has to guarantee that when he divorces her, he's going to pay her back. So if those clothing are still intact, they're a little worn, of course, she doesn't get those back. However, to answer Dubi Shaila, what if when he married her, he knew she was an islandess, so it was sober v'kibo, then yesh l'ksuba, then surely she gets l'ksuba. Almana l'koyin gadol, rusha v'chalutza l'koyin hedi. These are women who are not shniyos. It's not also for them to be married with their rabbanon. So this is their raisa. So in this is their raisa, it's going to be poikim the blood, or mamzeres from the sinuli Yisrael, or Abbas Yisrael and the sinuli mamzer. All those women yeshlam tshuva. You know why? Because she's not the one who wants the marriage. You know who might be pursuing this marriage? He might be. So therefore, you make him pay maximum tshuva because we want to discourage him from wanting to enter into such a marriage. Now, there's a very interesting point over here. Someone who makes meal. So there's a kedushin derabanan based on the mother or the brother's marrying her up. She makes meal. So what would you say after she makes a meal? Is that mevatel the kedushin lemafreya, or is she considered mikudeshes until now? Because if she was mikudeshes until now, would she not need a get? So the pashas, the way we understand meal is it undoes the marriage. So let's see what Rashi says to explain why a woman who gets miyun doesn't have mezonos. So what Rashi says here, right at the top, is Eilam Tsuba, the second Rashi from the top of the Mishnah. Mima Enes. Why does a Mima Enes not get Tsuba? Mishum Demei Atzma Yotzet. Because she left by herself. He didn't divorce her. Why does Rashi say a better reason? Because she nullifies the Kedushin. So there was never Chiv Tsuba to begin with. So this is a raya, one of the rayas that Chaim Brisker brings. So Chaim Brisker says that there's two types of limafreya. There's limafreya, and there's limafreya mikano lava. What does that mean? Limafreya means if when she makes miyun to zif, she was never mikudeshes at all. If that's how miyun worked, then Rashi wouldn't have needed to give us svara of mishum devach mayotza. There was never a marriage. So Chaim says there's something called limafreya mikano lava, which means halachically, it only impacts it mikano lava. So sure, it nullifies the kedushin because that's what miyun does. But halachically, its impact is only mikano lava. That's what Chaim's new together in lemafreya, whose impact is only negei mikano lava. So therefore, if that's how you learn miyun works, so then in fact, at the time that they were together, there was a marriage. Like bezoi, there would have been a chiyuv ksuba triggered if not for the fact that the me'atzma yotzes she's leaving, so that wouldn't trigger a chiyuv ksuba.
Would she be called a zoyna?
The Gemara says beferish not. The Gemara says beferish not because mikanu laba, the halach is lagabe mikanu laba. We look at it as if there was no marriage. So right now, after she made miyun, we look at it that there's no marriage. Because halachically, we look at it mikanu laba as if there was no marriage. But lemaisa, there was a marriage. Lagabe what halacha was their marriage? Maybe it wasn't called a bias nus. Okay, so let's see the Gemara weiter. Rav Tony.
This as if we say that she nullified everything, then she has to pay back all the loans that we gave.
No, she's not.
She died. So
there was a marriage, so the chiv bezoinus was Menei. The same reason why Rashi had to say this because it was not going to chiv bezoinus. Beautiful. Shloich, yeah. Zok the Gemara. Rav Tony Ketana Yoitze Beget. What if a woman was Mikudeshes Midrabot, but she didn't make miyun? Her husband gave her a get. So Rav learns that even such a woman, so there was no miyun, but the husband gave her a get, which she was Tana, of course, Ein Loch Shuba. She doesn't need to get Ksuba. The Choshe came a menace. Of course, if she walked out by herself. Why shouldn't there be Ksuba if she was Yoitze Beget? So Rashi, Rav Tani Ketana HaYoitze Beget Ein Loch Shuba, Kasavar Ein Nisuya Ketana Elakemefuta Ba'alma. There's no such thing as marriage for Ketana. We look at her halachically like she's a mafuta. A mafuta is stam's nose, does not get tshuva. I'm sorry. Yeah, Rav would obviously hold that there's no such thing as a marriage. Exactly. We're talking according to shul law. There was a marriage.
It's only if the mother and the brother have some type of.
Right, we're not talking about that's a kedushin deraisa. Yeah. Avol yoytze beget, but a woman who, I'm sorry, Shmuel told him, but if she was released with the get, then yesh lo ksuba, then she will have a chiyuv. She will be entitled to her ksuba. But also Shmuel atemei, and Shmuel is following his own shita. Damar Shmuel mima enes ein lo ksuba. A mima enes doesn't get ksuba, but yoytze beget yesh lo ksuba. That's halacha number one. Halacha number two, mima enes lo pasla min ha'achim. A girl who makes miyun, we look at it mikanu la'aba, like there was never ever a marriage. And if there was never ever a marriage, then she is mutter to marry her husband's brothers, because they're not considered her husband's brothers, because there was never a marriage. She's not considered a migureshes if she's mimayim. But the yoitzes beget, Shmuel holds that she was yoitzes beget, then it's pastel menachin and upastel menachin. Another thing Shmuel holds is normally we have a takana that whenever a woman marries a second time after her first marriage, she has to wait 3 months for avchana. And that's relevant even if there's no way she could have gotten pregnant. Lamoshel, she was a tana. Nevertheless, there's a loy plug that between marriages there always has to be a 3-month gap. However, Amima Enes, we say is different, and she would not have to wait 3 months. Okay, now getting on to Kuf Aleph from Aleph, Yoitze beget, but Shmuel holds that if she was Yoitze beget, then Tzricha Lahamtin Shloisha Chadoshim. So she would have to wait 3 months. And Rashi speaks out, even if there was no Shum Chashash of pregnancy, because she was a Tana all along. So, Frek the Gemara, my Kamash Malon. What is the Chiddush of this memra that Shmuel said? Tanina Kulu. All of the items that Shmuel lists are in the Mishnah. It says as follows: Hamima Enes Beish, if a woman makes miyun and a man who mutter b'kroiveseh, he'll be able to marry her kroivim, her sisters, her mother, because there was never a marriage there. The himu teres b'kroivo, and she would be mutter to marry his brother or all his other kroivim. And kahuna, because we don't look at her like she's a Mugureshus. But nosan laget, if he gave her a get, and who asur b'kroiveseh, the asur b'kroivov, who pasal kahuna. So, Frank the Gemara, we already have a Mishnah that lists off all these differences. So, why is it that Shmuel needed to tell me all these halachos? And for the Gemara, tzricha lahamtin gimel chadashim, it's tzricha leidloitnan. The one item in the list that Shmuel has in his list, that the Mishnah doesn't have in its list, is that a woman who makes miyun does not have to wait 3 months for a phona, and a woman who was a tana and she got divorced, she would have to wait 3 months for a phona before she can marry somebody else. The reason is because we want, if she has a child, 6 months after the new marriage, right? But there's a loy plug that once they enacted that takana, they enacted it across the board no matter what, so there should never be a mistake. So therefore, anything that's considered a marriage would require that. Miyun, we say it was never considered a marriage, and therefore it wouldn't be included in that loy plug. Let's say that there's actually a machlokes tonight about this halach. Rabbi Elazar said, "Ein ma'aseh ktana klum." The ma'aseh ktana is nothing, so her marriage does not count at all, and therefore, vein baila zakoi b'mitziasa. Her husband will not have a schus in owning her mitzios, things that she finds. Nor does he have a right to get her earnings. He can't be mafter in the door. If she dies, he won't yarshin her.
What's my time today to him? I'm asking that if she works and she gets a paycheck, she doesn't get a paycheck?
He doesn't get it. He's not entitled to her
because
paycheck.
She doesn't. Why not?
No, of course she does. If she has a job, she gets a paycheck. Normally, the husband takes the paycheck, but Rabbi Elazar holds that if you marry a Ktana, then you're not entitled to her paycheck.
Why not? He gives him a son.
Because ein ma'aseh ktana klum.
I hear that, but I don't understand.
So it's not a marriage.
Doesn't he have to give?
Oh, so you're asking me, so why does he have to give him a zonis? Is that what you're asking?
Or again, because he has to give him a zonis, why doesn't he get a master time?
Okay, so let's have a look. Very good question. Okay, let's see the Gemara weiter. That's a very good question. The Einam Tamala, and he if he's a Kohen, he cannot become tummy for her. Kalala Shaldover, the rule is Eina Keishtoi L'Choldover. L'Gabi Al Halachas, she does not have a status of his wife. Ela Shatricha Miyam. All it needs, the only halacha that's somewhat similar to marriage that's required is that for her to walk free, there has to be meal. Okay. Rabbi Yeshua says, no, ma'aseh ktana klum. The marriage of a ktana, in fact, has some validity. Ubayla zakoi b'mitziasa. Her husband is entitled to her mitzias. Uva ma'aseh dea, uba forest nidera, v'yorsha, u'metamela. So they ask, how could he be metamet to her? Tosfos asks, how could he be metamet to her? L'maisi, he's not married to her midaraisa. So Tosfos says it will be an altmeis mitzvah, because the balk he's responsible for. He yarshins her, where we learned that the person who yarshins her is the one who's going to bury her. So her yarshim aren't going to bury her. So she has a din of a base mitzvah. Kol shaldover. What is the rule? The rule is harei ki ishtei l'choldover. We looked at this woman like it's his proper wife, except for one exception. Ela sheyotze b'miyun, she can go out with miyun. So Zok to Gemara, Lema Rav, the Omer Krabbalozer. Say Rav who holds that my Sikatana is loikum, because what did Rav say? Rav said that Yosy beget ein laksuba v'chol shkem emes. So she doesn't have any of the rights. As a matter of fact, Rav holds a Yosy beget doesn't get anything, right? That's a Rav holds. So maybe it stems beautifully with what Rabbi Elazar said that ain't my sektana klum, and Shmuel, who said in fact that someone who divorces a ktana, she is entitled to all the benefits of the ksuba, unlike a mayanes, the Amar Rabbi Shua. So maybe Shmuel stems with Rabbi Shua, who says my sektana klum. Zok Gemara al libud Rabbi Elazar. According to Rabbi Elazar, it's clear ain't my sektana klum. So therefore, kul ma'almaloi pligi. It's impossible to say that Shmuel can hold like Rabbi Elazar, as Rashi says. That must be that way. The Moed Shmuel agrees that he can't stim with Rabbi Eliezer. The Rabbi Eliezer ain't ksuba l'shum kitana. Why? The Hashda Shmuel himself said Yerushasa u'mitziasa. The medida lididei ka'amar. The Yerusha and the Mitzia are things that he benefits from her. So they're benefits that he gets from her. And even over there, Shmuel said, Ka'amar, Deloi, Misukmaba, Takana B'Rabbanan. We don't have this Takana B'Rabbanan, meaning the marriage of the marriage of this Katana will not entitle him to the normal rights that he gets from his wife. So Madach, he doesn't get her rights. Koshken Subasa, surely the rights that she gets from him, the Mididei, Lidida, surely those. Because Rashi is going to explain a little bit later that no one's going to want to marry a Ketana if she can just walk out. We have to make it somewhat enticing for him. So therefore, we give him all the benefits. It makes sense to give him all the benefits of a normal wife so that he should at least have an incentive to marry this Ketana. So if Shmuel says we don't give him any of the benefits, Kolshigan, we don't give her any of the benefits. And if you notice, Shmuel and Rav were talking primarily about the benefits that he gets from her, and I'm sorry, that she gets from him, and I'm sorry, Shmuel talking primarily about the benefits that she gets from him. Here we're talking about the Bryces, Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shua are talking about the benefits that he gets from her. So Madach, he doesn't get any benefits from her, which is really what we would want to do. Kolshkin, she won't get any benefits from him. So Zokrasha Kolshkin Shubasa de Mididei Lidida. They did it to benefit her, so she shouldn't be hefker. So therefore, they're going to have to incentivize the man, not the woman. Because she ain't ketana yerdas lishmor atma milas patlich. She'll be taken advantage of. So therefore, we want to get her married. So we're going to incent the husband. So madach, we don't incent the husband like Rabbi Elazar holds. Surely she's not going to get the benefits of tshuva. So Shmuel cannot stim with Rabbi Elazar, but maybe Rav could stim with Rabbi Yeshua. Keep liga libid Rabbi Yeshua. Do you say Shmuel Rabbi Yeshua? Shmuel for sure is like Rabbi Yeshua, who holds that there are benefits of marriage. We treat it like a marriage. But for Rav, Atkan like Rabbi Shua Hasam, where does Rabbi Shua say that my sektana is klum? There's a validity to this marriage. Elamidida lididei. That's only talking about the benefits that he gets from her, as Rabbi Yeshua lists off by the zakoi b'mitziyaso, the ma'isider, the forsider, the yorshu mitamala. Avol mididei lidida loy. But maybe she doesn't get any benefits. So, Chaim, you asked, it's totally zebazeh. You see here from the Gemara that the Gemara wants to argue that maybe not. Maybe for the special marriage, normally the Takanas were Zelu Mazeh, that's for sure. But you see that there's a tzad to say in Rav that maybe this special marriage of a Ketana, we're only going to give, there's a tzad to say that we're only going to give the benefits to the husband of this marriage, and we're not going to give the benefits to the Isha of this marriage because we're just trying to incentivize the husband to get married. Or maybe Rav argues.
So of Mizonis for sure she gets, right?
Mizonis, which is Tachtov, she gets. Not everybody agrees.
Right.
Now, everybody agrees she gets Mizonis, which is Tachtov.
isn't the Master
Even the Ma'anas gets who she's talking about.
right, but isn't Mitzia and the Master tax results, at least Master tax results?
Yeah, but nevertheless, Rav says she doesn't get it.
Right.
Rav doesn't say she doesn't get it. Rabbi Loza says she doesn't get it.
Right, so she gets Mazonis, so why doesn't he get his payment?
I'm not sure. Okay, so let's see the Gemara Vayter. So that's a very good order. If you hold like Rabbi Elazar that he doesn't get any of the benefits of the marriage, so then why would he want to give her? Why would he want to give her mezayis? So could we do? So could we do? Okay, so let's see the Gemara Vayter. Because the mezayis that the Rav and Shmuel are talking about are mezayis if he dies that you could take from the estate. It's not talking about mezayis b'shas. Okay, so let's see the Gemara Vayter. Belois. So what are these belois that we're talking about? These worn clothing that she doesn't get back. So let's think about it. There's two types of worn clothing. There's the worn clothing of Nichsit and Barsha. That when she brought them into the marriage with her, they were given to him, so to speak. And he just says that whatever value, let's say there's a chest of $500, so when he divorces her, he'll have to give her $500. But really, they're his. Or it could be nichsim aluk, clothing that she brought in nichsim aluk that he never owned. He just has a right to the payers of those clothing. But they all belong to her. That's a very good question. So there's actually a shiloh that we're going to have. What are the pairs of clothing? Does that mean the right to wear them? Or does that mean you could sell them, buy property with them? So there's a shiloh what that means. But whatever the case, the pairs of malug, the clothing of malug, are for sure more hers than the clothing of the Torah Barzil. So that's the most important point to remember for this Gemara. That it's much more logical to say that she should get the belois of the malug than that she should get the belois of the Torah Barzil. Because the belois of the malug, the clothing that were malug that she brought into the marriage, always belonged to her. She never lost possession over them. So in Barzil, she loses possession of them. So Amalei Rav Huna Bar Chila Rav Kahana, Amrit Lon Mishmei Shmuel. You told us the name of Shmuel. This that we say that she doesn't get back are nichsim aluk, which is not mistaber, right? Nichsim aluk is the most thing they should get back. But nichsim Torah Barzil Islam, but nichsim Torah Barzil will get back. Mishmamish doesn't make sense. So Havi Bar Papa. If anybody has an art scroll, is it Havi Bar Papa or is it Havi Bar Papa? Havi. He was wondering about it. That's what it means. So Havi Bar Papa. Ahaya. Exactly what are we referring to? Which case? There's three cases in the Mishnah. There's Ma'anes, there's Shniyos, and there's Islands. So which case of the Mishnah are we referring to with this unusual psak?
Why shouldn't the Nixon move? Why should the Nixon Barzil makes sense that she goes back?
No, because
she doesn't go back to the thing itself, but the money.
We're talking about Belois. We're talking about the worn clothing itself. The money for Shtachel she gets. We're talking about actually getting back the worn clothing. So, if we're referring to Amema'anis, so let's think about it. Ida Isnahu, if they're still around, well, then Ida Vidi Shak, she should get everything back. Why would you take it away from her? They're both hers. Everything was kosher v'yosher, and now it's over. The marriage is over. So, father, she should get it back. Vida Lesnu, and if they're no longer around, well, then Ida Vidi Loishak, so she wouldn't get. So, why is there a difference between Nichsim Maluk and Nichsim Barzil? By Amema'anis, there should be no difference. So maybe we're talking about an island. Again, if they're around, her marriage is dissolved, she walks out with everything. And if they're not around, then if anything, it should be the opposite. The nichsim maluk that were always in his rishos is that she should get. And I'm sorry? Right, they're in her rishos, so she should get them. And this is Barzil, the love rishus kaimi, the nichsim Barzil, which she took over, well then less law she shouldn't get. So it's exactly the opposite. Why should we say that she gets nichsim Barzil and not maluk? Ella ashniya, it must be that it's referring to ashniya. The kanzer abadan l'dida b'didei l'didei b'dida. The Rabbanan said, you lady were supposed to get the nichsim maluk. We're taking that away from you because you did an aveira. You married someone you couldn't marry. And you, mister, who were supposed to get the Nichsim Barzil, you're not getting that. You know why? Because you did an Avaida. You can ask, it depends on with the war, who's in Taknas. Maybe he benefits. But the main thing is, you're not going to follow your expectations of how it would normally be split up. Why? Because this marriage is inappropriate. From here you see, Kahana, you see from Rabbi Kahana an important halacha. Because Rabbi Kahana is the one who said that they do this switching around, that he'll get the Nichse Maluk and she'll get the Nichse Chambarzal. You see from here that Ayla Leglima, and this is what Chaim was asking, what is the pairs of the clothing? Ayla Leglime, if she brings in a beged, Karna Hava, that's called Karen. Wearing the clothes is not pairs. Wearing clothing is Karen, and therefore Veloy Michsila, Ve'azul Adabali. And he's not allowed to wear it until it wears out, because then he's wearing out of Karen. He's not allowed to do that. The only thing they could do is they could sell it and buy a field with it that will produce pairs. So Rashi says on the first widest line, I like Lima b'nichse mulub, shaloi shamul b'nedayse. It wasn't made at the time Bashal. Karnahava, it's Karen. The kaim isha belongs to the woman. And what do you do with it? Limocher, we sell it. V'likach by karka, you buy property to protect her principal. Who like pairs? V'loy amrinon, you don't say levishasa hein peirisel. You don't say the pairs of a beggar is wearing it, because wearing it is going to wear it out and jeopardize your principle. And you don't say v'nichsel bav nasal. You can just wear it and wear it out. You do not say that. So v'loy michsel bav la. You don't say that, because he clearly says that the nichsel maluk is supposed to go back to her. In fact, the Rab Nachman peir hava. Rab Nachman actually said that it is pairs. You could wear it. So the word Rab Nachman plipa. So obviously Rab Nachman argues in Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana holds that wearing it is not pairs. Wearing it is not pairs, and therefore she's entitled to get it back. Mashenkin. Rav Nachman would hold she's not entitled to get it back because he can wear it out until it's gone. It does not say who we pass on. It's correct. So this woman does not get ksuba. So Zok the Gemara, this that we take away the ksuba from the shniyos, Amar Shmuel Loshanu Alamana Masai. What they're taking away from her is Manu Masai, which is the Tanai Bezin of ksuba, the mandatory ksuba. Aval Toisus, but if he wrote any special other chiyuvim to himself, which is basically just a gift from the chassan to the kala, yeshlosh, that she would get. Chazal only take away, they only cancel what they gave her. They don't go interfering with the gifts that the chassan gave the kala. Tanya Mihachi, Nashim Shavim Chachamim Einam Ksuba, all of these women that don't get ksuba, which are listed in our Mishnah, the ma'emes and all her friends, meaning the islanders and the Shniya, Ein lahem manu masayim. All Chazal are taking away to count to them are manu masayim. Aval tois v'syesh lahem. But any promise is made, that still remains in effect. But noshim shamu cham yoytzos shaloi b'tzuba. But women who the Chacham say that you have to force them to give a get, that's much worse. Kigoyin oiveres aldas. A woman who feeds her husband produce, the word masukin, or she's mashulim when she's a nida, or she's a zava. So all these women who yoitzes, where you're supposed to divorce your wife, ain't lem toisus. They don't get toisus either, because we want them to lose everything. They lose everything because they're being even more punished. Okay, Zok to Gemara Viter, and the Choshkein Manu Masayim. Surely they're sanctioned from the Manu Masayim. What if someone's divorcing his wife because he suspects that there's things that she's doing that are counterproductive to the marriage? So the halacha is noitel masha lefanel v'yoytze. She just takes her remaining nechashim. She definitely doesn't get her tshuba, but she takes her nichsim ulug, whatever she's entitled to, and she goes. This is a right to Ravuna. Zinsa, if she was mezana, and therefore he has to divorce her, loy hivsida bloisel kayomis. The worn clothing that are still belonging to her, like those nichsim ulug, she doesn't lose those. Whatever is in existence that belongs to her, she still gets to take with her. Well, there's probably good reason to believe that there's trouble there. It's probably not his paranoia. There's 8 that they secluded together like this. Tani Tana Kameder of Nachman. Tana quoted a brayso in front of Rav Nachman. Zinsov, she does nus, hifsida beloy se'akayam. She will lose any of her nichsim uluk begodim that are still in existence. Amar lei. So they told Rav Nachman told this person who quoted this brayso, why? Im he zinsa keleo mizanoi. Just because she did an avera, so she shall lose in the chazan. Meichatesa, they belong to her, and therefore Tani, you have to learn differently. Lo yifsida beloy se'akayam. Amar Rabba Babachana, Rabbi Yochanan, Zu Divir, Menachem Timsa. The brayso that we were originally goyers that have seen of loisa kayamin, that's according to Rav Nachman Timsa. So Allah Almighty, if a woman's mezana, she's getting thrown out, even though she might lose her ksuba, but whatever her nechasim, whatever belongs to her, she can take out of the marriage with her. What if someone married an islandess knowing he went into it with his eyes open, he knew that she was an islandess, so then she's entitled to her ksuba. Amar Ravuna, islandess isha ve'ena isha. An islandess has, to a certain extent, it has a status of your wife, but there are halachas where she does not have a status of your wife, and the Gemara will explain. But an almana is an isha gemura. An almana is considered completely your wife, meaning an almana l'kohen gadol. Kohen gadol who marries a woman beiser, that's an isha gemura. Islandess isha ve'ena isha. What does that mean? That means hikirba yesh lo ksuba. If he knew that she was an islandess and he went into it with his eyes open, well, then she's entitled to her ksuba. There's not a mekachos. So in that respect, it's isha. In other words, an island's kedusha will be chal. But loy hirkerba. But if he didn't know about it and he was fooled, ein lo ksuba. Then it's a mekachos and there's no ksuba. But almana isha gemura bein hirkerba bein loy hirkerba. Say if he knew about it. Say if he didn't know about it. Yesh lo ksuba. It's not a mekachos. So everybody asks the famous kash on this thing. I understand this very well. If you tell me not to eat that shishmak chicken in the morning, I'm going to eat it. But what if it's a cheese Danish, non-fleischiks? I don't even have a time to eat it. So you see, a person will be more removed from Isser than from non-Isser, right? So oy bazoi, if a person would be so upset that if he married an islandess, it's the Kedushin's bottle, because we know he wouldn't want, well, Kolshkin he wouldn't want to do an Isser. Kolshkin he wouldn't want to marry an almana. So why do we say that an islandess is a mekachos and an almana is not?
So the time says that about Lashon Hara, so a lot. So bring goes through Lashon Hara, and then let's say they're reading has an aliyah and he sees it the ice in the same third. Even thinking about the Lasef Rafa, right? Like that, what's convincing the Aleph and the Lama, Lasef Rafa, that people you go crazy, you have to sell that number to Lashon Hara.
I hear.
He's that example of time.
So the Chazon Ish speaks a little bit, and he says that that's the way it is normally. But if someone wants to marry a woman, so then after he does the Avera, he won't want her anymore. But before he does the Avera, in a momentary taiva, he'll be able to, it's possible that he'll want her. And therefore, it's not such a method. Rabbi Yehuda achasu, ve'achasu, isha ve'ena isha. Even by an almana, it's the same thing. If he knew that she was an almana and he married her be'isr, then she's entitled to her ksuba. But if the kohen gadol didn't know that she was an almana and she sort of fooled him, well then ein lo ksuba, then there's no ksuba. It's a mekatos.
What's the reason that if almana kohen gadol is an issue because it's only it's allowed, it's not?
Yes, a kedushin status. Yeah. So Zakim or Meisvei. Kansa b'cheskas she came. What if he took her, he married her under the assumption that she was an almana, and she was, and he knew about it. Yesh l'ksuba, of course she gets l'ksuba. But you could be medayik from this Mishnah that says, dafka if he knew about it, hastama, if he didn't know about it, then ein l'ksuba. So this is shver on Rav Huna, who holds yesh l'ksuba. Rav Huna says if he didn't know about it, we'll say she still gets her ksuba, right? Almana is ishtei gemura. From the brayso you could be medayik dafka if he knew about it, but if he didn't know about it, he shouldn't have to give the ksuba. So don't be medayik that way. Alema kanzu b'cheska she'enake the nimtza she came then ein ksuba. The stama means she didn't tell Al b'chetzka she'ein kain means they discussed it. Are you sure you were never married before? And she says, I'm sure I was never married. That's a mekachtos. Avol stama mai isla. So you're going to say stama she'll have a ksuba and it's not a mekachtos. Well, if that's the case, adatani b'cheska she came. V'dim says she came. Yes, ksuba. When the Mishnah said, where is it a good marriage when you knew about it in advance? It's even a good marriage according to Rav Huna if you didn't know about it in advance, which means stama the choshgena the oid. And we have another problem. The Brisa says beferish not like Rav Huna because the Brisa says tani kansa b'yadua v'nimtas b'yadua yesh laksuba. If he knew about it, then she has ksuba. Kansa stam, it's black and white. Kansa stam, if he didn't know about it, ain laksuba. So tiyuf to the Rav Huna. Rav Huna's overshloken. And in fact, if a kohen gadol marries an almana and it turns out that she is an almana didn't know about it, then he doesn't give her tshuva. The kedusha's blocked. Rav Huna, so how did Rav Huna make this mistake? Because Rav Huna at first said that stama it wouldn't be possible. The Gemara must not to say the Mishnah, the lashon of the Mishnah fooled him. Why? Because where does our Mishnah mention that it makes a difference if he knew about it or not? That's by idleness. So who's over me? The maflik by idleness, v'loy kamaflik by almana. The Mishnah didn't mention by almana l'kohen gadol makes a difference if he knew about it or not. Michlal the almana afilu b'shtaminami yisla. So that's why Huna thought that the Mishnah holds that by an almana, if he didn't know about it, the kohen gadol is still considered kedushin mukhliyif in ksuba. But v'loy, that's not pshat in the Mishnah. Rather, kika tani la almana apluk the island's kohen. Once the Mishnah already said that by islands, if he was makabel, it's considered a marriage. So when the Mishnah discussed the later case of almana, the Mishnah meant that the same halacha that we said with Rabbi Aaron's will also apply to an almana. So Baruch Hashem, we finished the 11th parak. Be'ez Hashem, v'neider hadin lach almana l'zoyis, hadin lach almana l'zoyis, hadin lach almana l'zoyis. Okay, now we're going to the next Mishnah. Kishmaka Mishnah. Hanoi says Isha, a guy married a woman, and this woman was married before, and she had children before. So now she has these children from her first marriage that she's bringing into the second marriage. So she needs to make sure that they're taken care of financially. So Paski Imoy Kadeshi Yazin as Bita Chameshan. She made up, you're marrying me, but you have to accept upon yourself the liability to support my daughters for 5 years, or my daughter for 5 years. So the halach is Chayv L'Don Chameshanim. It's a notbach. Notbach is a notbach. This is lacher. What if this marriage didn't last 5 years and she divorced the guy and she married a third husband and she made the same deal with the third husband? Upaski Moi Kadeshi Yazin as Bita Chameshanim. Well, then he's also Chayv. Chayv L'Don Chameshanim. But now there's two people who are mechuyev to be amazing this woman, right? Before the first 5 years expires, so there's two husbands now that have a chiyuv to support these girls. They made a commitment. So lo yomer harishon. I'm sorry. Oh, very good. If he just right now he made a general commitment, not such a smart move. So don't be saying maybe when he makes that commitment he should make it contingent on their marriage. That's what the mission is going to bring up later. Very good point. But here he didn't. So lo yomer harishon. The first husband shouldn't say, which really means her second husband, but the first of the commitment, when she comes to live by me, that's when I will support her. But right now she's living with you and your new husband. Rather, he has to send the money to the new marriage. And the two husbands can't get together and say, we'll chip in. Why should she double dip? Ella, she double dips. Nisis habal. What happens if the husband gets married? Noisin lo mezainos. Behain noisin lo. Nisis, you got married. Habal noisin lo mezainos. Behain noisin lo the main mezainos. I'm a little bit mixed up. What's going on here? Oh, that's right. Nisis, right. That's right. Nisis. She got married, so now she has three. Now she tripled it. That's right. Nisis habal noislam mazonis. They noislam the main mazonis, and they still have to pay her. Mesu, if they die, well then b'noiseyan. So imagine these husbands died. What chiyuv do they have to be mefarnish for their estate to be mefarnish to daughters? It's in the ksuba that they will be able to live off my nechasim. But that's only my nechasim b'nei chayr, not nechasim shugodim. You're not toifus from a lekeah to give your own daughter food. So Mesu b'Nosein Nizonis min Nechasim b'Deicharet. Their own daughters could only eat Nizonis if there are assets that aren't sold. But this girl who's getting it mitoris the choiv because of a commitment that he made, Nizonis min Nechasim b'Shabbadim. If she kabbalas choiv. So Dovi says, why would someone get himself into such a crazy situation? Hapichim, the smart husbands, they would write, Almanash aznas bitcha chamishanan kol zman imi, while you're still married to me, which is exactly what Dovi said as soon as we started the Mishnah. Zok Gemara, Itmar, what type of commitment was this when he said, I'll support your daughter for 5 years? Exactly what happens. Was it just a verbal commitment? What if you go over to your friend and you say, Chaim, I owe you a money? Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayiv. Rabbi Yochanan knows that's Machayiv Yomana. For a Shlokash Amar Potter. What exactly is the case? Either Amalu Atem Edai, if there's Edim there, and he said, you are my Edim, that I'm saying Chaim, that I owe him, so there, it's Pasha that I'm a Chayiv myself. My time of the Rish Lakish to Kapotter. Why would Rish Lakish say that I'm not Mechuyev? If you didn't say Atem Edai, Stama verbal saying that I owe you money, if it's not true, why would that be Mechayiv me? My time is Rabbi Yochanan to come Chayiv. So he didn't say Atameda, but the Amr Lay, he said Chayiv ani loch mana b'shtar. What he did was he wrote on a star, I owe you a mana. He didn't sign his name. He just wrote, I owe you a mana, and he handed this paper over to his friend that said that. And there's Adam watching. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayiv. Why? Alima milsa d'shtara. The fact that he wrote it down is command the Amr Lahu Atam Edim dummy. It's as if, since he didn't just say it, he wrote it down and he handed it to somebody, and the Edim witnessed me handing that paper. That has the strength of saying Atam Edai, Potter, it's not as strong. Okay, we'll stop here and we'll be Mamshech Mishem tomorrow. So this is the last part of Ksubis before the very last part, which is going to be Nidorim, which is